It feels like more work to say no than just to have sex. If I say no, I have to deal with his attitude and us fighting all week when I could have just said yes and made him happy so I don't have to deal with his shit. So I just do it. The whole time I'm thinking about all the other things I could be doing or I'm just waiting for it to be over. And if I'm being completely honest, I don't want to give him an excuse to go out on me. I've put too much into this relationship to let it happen. Welcome back to another episode of the Sex and Spanglish podcast. I'm your hostess, Ana Lopez, sexologist and sex coach, and I am here to help you change your relationship to sex so that you can enjoy it sin vergüenza. And today we're going to be doing that by talking about forcing yourself to have sex when you don't want to. On Wednesday's episode, I went into this problem in depth and explained how it's showing up, why it's showing up, and what you can do about it. And on today's episode, I'm going to be doing some coaching on this. So, in the past few weeks, I have begun publishing these Friday episodes, which I plan on doing this from here on out, where I'm going to be coaching on questions or information that I get from you all on the one-on-one coaching applications that I receive. So when you apply for one-on-one coaching, which you can do so by going to the show notes, there's a link there to apply. When you apply, you will answer a bunch of questions, but one of the questions is, what is your biggest sexual struggle when it comes to sex? And usually people answer this in the way of like, this is why I'm coming to coaching, essentially. So as soon as I read these questions, or your answer to this question, because I do review them before our call, I go into coaching mode in my brain as I'm reading it. And there are thoughts that I have as I read it, right? Before I even have the conversation with you. Now, I am not sharing exactly what is on any one application. So I'm taking the problems that I've seen in multiple applications, right? And putting them into my own words. I'm also attempting to use the words and phrases my clients use typically. So I need you to know that if you've applied for one-on-one coaching or if you're planning on applying for one-on-one coaching, that I'm not going to read your application. What I've done is taken the applications where people have expressed this same problem, right? And put it all together in a way that makes sense. So it makes sense as in like writing it out, and then I can coach on it. So let's reread this submission. It feels like more work to say no than to just have sex. If I say no, I have to deal with his attitude and us fighting all week when I could have just said yes and made him happy. So I didn't have to deal with his shit. So I just say yes. I just do it. The whole time I'm thinking about all the other things I could be doing, or I'm just waiting for it to be over. And if I'm being completely honest, I don't want to give him an excuse to go out on me. I've put too much into this relationship to let that happen. So I understand why it feels like more work to say no than just to have sex. If your experience has been, okay, well, if I say no, then he has an attitude or we're fighting, um, whatever that is, I get that. I understand why you would want to avoid that. However, you just giving in doesn't necessarily guarantee that there isn't going to be a fight. It doesn't guarantee that he's not going to have an attitude sometime tonight, this week, what have you. And I also want to point out that by doing this, you're attempting to save his feelings by completely ignoring yours. So, like, is that something you want to do? Do you care more about his feelings than about yours? And in all honesty, when you are attempting to control how someone feels, right? You're trying to prevent them from feeling some type of way. You're really doing it because you don't want to feel some type of way, right? So like you don't want him to be upset because then you'll tell yourself that you're a bad girlfriend or you're a bad partner or whatever, right? So you're just like, oh, okay, well, I'll say yes and then he won't feel that way and then I don't have to tell myself that I'm a bad partner. But the reality is that you don't have to tell yourself you're a bad partner either way. His emotions do not dictate what you get to tell yourself about you. You choose that. And he's allowed to have emotions. Again, we talked about this on Wednesday. Humans are going to have emotions. One. Two, your partner is allowed to be disappointed for wanting something and not getting it. That is a totally normal reaction. And I went more into this on Wednesday. But there's a difference between being in a relationship where your partner is like upset or kind of disappointed when you say no, particularly if they were like looking forward to it, versus them like blowing up on you, right? So I need you to identify what type of relationship you're in. And if you are resonating with this submission and you are in a relationship where it's like his response is not healthy, then this coaching conversation is not for you. Because in this coaching conversation, I am talking to the person that is in a healthy, non-abusive relationship. If you are in an abusive relationship or in a relationship that isn't very healthy, then where your partner is responding to you violently, either physically, verbally, or just like emotionally immature in a way, and yeah, if they're responding in that way, that is not a healthy relationship. And I, as your coach, am not going to coach you on enjoying sex when you are having sex with a person like that. That is not the conversation we need to be having. That is an entirely different conversation. So if that is you and you're like, well, what the fuck? I wanted some coaching on this. I invite you to apply for one-on-one coaching because we can have a conversation about that, about why exactly I'm not going to coach you on sex and what we need to coach on instead. Okay. And depending on your specific context, like that depends on how the conversation is going to go. And that is more in depth than I can provide on this podcast, specifically because I need to know more information. So if you are resonating with this and you are in a healthy, non abusive relationship, and your partner is feeling disappointed or upset or sad when you say no to sex, I want you to know that that is a normal human reaction. And I also want to point out that you are attempting to control for his emotions. And you are doing so that you're not mean to yourself, right? If I can just make him happy, which you do not have the ability to do, by the way, no matter who tells you that you do, you don't. You're like, if I make him happy or I prevent him from being sad, then I don't have to tell myself that I'm a bad partner, that he's going to cheat on me, blah, 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 blah. But the reality is you don't have to tell yourself that anyway. So you're allowed to say no to sex whenever you want to. And it doesn't mean anything about you as a partner. Your partner is allowed to have emotions in response to hearing no to something that he really wanted. And he's allowed to have that. That is okay. And it doesn't mean anything about you as a partner. It just means he's human. And that is okay. Okay. So the next part of your submission says the whole time I'm thinking about all of the other things I could be doing, or I'm just waiting for it to be over. So if you're going to force yourself to have sex, and I'm going to say this until I am blue in the face, I do not recommend that. However, I know some of y'all still going to do it, and that is okay. But if you are going to force yourself to have sex, at least let yourself enjoy it, right? Like if you're going to do it anyway, just fucking enjoy it. You're already saying yes. Why would you then add insult to injury, add sal to the herida, and not enjoy it? Doesn't make any sense. So allow yourself to enjoy it. And I do understand about like your mind kind of being elsewhere, right? You're like, I'm thinking about all the other things I could be doing. Absolutely. I get that. And the reason that is happening is because you've already denied yourself from experiencing pleasure. If you go into it of like, I don't want to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway, and own that decision because you are choosing to have sex whenever you have sex, independent of the reason why. No one is forcing you to do it. If you are choosing to have sex, then give yourself permission to fucking enjoy it, right? When you cut yourself off and you're like, oh, well, I'm not allowed to enjoy it. I'm not going to enjoy it anyway. And you're being like you're being like a negative Nancy about the whole situation of like, okay, let's do this and get it over with. Then you spend the whole time like, oh my God, is he done yet? Like, that is why. Okay. And then you're thinking, I don't want to give him an excuse to go out on me. That's another reason that you're telling yourself that you have to have sex. But the reality is that you don't have to have sex if you don't want to. And if you say no and he still steps out on you, right? He cheats on you. That is not That's not why. He might say, well, you never want to have sex with me, so I went and had sex with somebody else. He might say that, but the reality is that he chose to do that. He is going to do whatever the fuck he wants to do, independent of what you do. You are not responsible for his actions ever. I don't give a fuck if you're like, you know what? I'm never going to have sex with you. I'm never going to kiss you. I'm never going to touch you. If he does not like that and he wants to be in a relationship where he is kissed and touched and fucked, great. He is allowed to leave and find a partner who will give him those things. That is not a justification for cheating, ever. So if he does cheat, even if he gives you those as reasons why, that is not your fault. He chose to do that. So that is his decision to own. That is his action to own. He did it. You are not responsible for his actions. Stop taking responsibility for his feelings and stop taking responsibility for his actions. When you are so busy attempting to control and taking responsibility of your partner's feelings and of their thoughts, feelings, and actions, you are spending no time considering how you're thinking, feeling, or how you're behaving, which means that you are not giving yourself permission to think about things that you actually want to think about, to create feelings that you actually want to have, and to show up in the way that you want to. You're completely avoiding the fact that you're making decisions that you don't want to make, that are not in alignment with what it is that you want to do in the world, with how you want to show up in your relationship. You're walking around feeling shitty. Life is happening to you, both in the bedroom and outside of the bedroom, instead of you taking ownership of your role in this issue that you're in, right? In this specific problem, and probably outside of it as well. I see, and I'm not saying this to judge you or blame you or chastise you or any of the above, right? But I need you to know that when I read this, I can tell that there is no ownership in your actions. You are, I can tell by reading this, you are attempting to control your partner's emotions so that you don't have to control yours. Instead of, oh, I am feeling a little resentful because my partner keeps asking me for sex when I don't want to. And I don't know how to say that to him. So I just stay quiet and I feel resentful. I'm showing up as if he should be able to read my mind. And then I am feeling resentful. And so I'm also forcing myself to have sex when he says yes. And it's his fault, right? You're like, the blame is on him. And I'm not saying there has to be blame at all. But what is happening is you are not speaking up. You are not saying no, right? When you want to say no, and then you're pissed off at your partner and you're like, well, if I can just control his actions or how he feels, then I will feel better. But the way to address how you feel is by addressing how it is that you're thinking, feeling, and how you're showing up in the relationship, right? You are annoyed or whatever it is about, or dreading maybe having sex because you're not going to enjoy it. But the reason you're not enjoying it is not because of your partner, it's because of you. You're going into it assuming that you are not going to like it, that you're not going to enjoy it. So, of course, you don't enjoy it. And then you're pissed off at him. Again, you're blaming him. And maybe this does not happen consciously, but I can guarantee you it's happening subconsciously, and it's showing up in your actions because we can tell because you're not enjoying the sex that you have, right? You say no or you say yes when you want to say no, and then you don't enjoy it. That is an indication that you are cutting yourself off from pleasure, because pleasure is your responsibility, not your partner's. Now, some of you, if you're new here, you might be like, what the fuck are you talking about? I hear you, but I've had this discussion before, so definitely go back and listen to my other episodes. I explain it all there in depth, but for the purposes of this coaching conversation, what I want to make um, evident here is that you are cutting yourself off from pleasure. You are also making it your responsibility for your partner not to step out on you, not to show up in a specific way. You're attempting to control his behaviors, again, so you feel better. You are all up in his business, which not to say that he's not your business, right? That's your man, girl. Go get your man. But, but his thoughts, feelings, and actions are not something that you control. They are under his control, and he gets to decide what to do with them. So the best thing that you can do in this scenario is take responsibility and ownership for how you've been showing up. Be honest with yourself about why you've been showing up the way that you've been showing up. And I dive in more in depth in that in the Wednesday episode, um, the episode just before this. So go back and listen if you haven't done so already, or even re-listen, right? You need to take ownership of how you've been showing up, create an understanding of why you've been showing up the way that you've been showing up, create some compassion both for yourself and for your partner of how things have panned out thus far, and then decide what you want to do moving forward. And if you need some help deciding what that looks like, or you're like, okay, the steps that you just like said, like, okay, cool, wrote them down, but I don't know what the fuck to do. One, I do give you some kind of surface level solutions in the last episode, but if you want to go more in depth on this in with your specific situation, then I invite you to apply for one-on-one coaching, because context does matter. The coaching that I'm giving here is going to be helpful to a certain extent. But if you really want to make some actual change in your relationship, then I need you to apply for one-on-one coaching, because we are going to get to the bottom of this. You don't have to do it on your own. I will tell you exactly why you're showing up in the way that you're showing up. I will help you create that self compassion so you stop being so fucking mean to yourself. And I will show you what you can do to create the type of sex life that you want to have. I will show you how you can actually enjoy sex and say no when you mean no, and say yes when you mean yes. When you take ownership of how you think, feel, and behave, your libido goes up. So you actually want to have sex. So you'll automatically say yes more often and actually mean it. And you enjoy yourself. And you can actually say no when you don't want to and stop feeling so fucking guilty about it. You can get out of your partner's ass and start focusing on yourself. Because when we are in a position where we are just all worried about our partner, up their ass, what are they doing? What are they thinking? What are they feeling? We end up in creating this dynamic in a relationship where we are not enjoying ourselves. And we ultimately end up blaming our partner when actuality, a lot of the times it started with us. And so I like to help you figure out how you want to show up. Because once you do that, once you decide and once you start showing up in the way that you want to show up in a relationship, right? Not even just with this specific partner, just in general, how you want to show up in your life, both in and out of the bedroom, then your partner is going to do what I do, or what I call showing up or showing out. So either he is going to step up to meet you where you have arrived, or he's going to show out, meaning he's going to show his true colors, probably what he's been doing this entire time that you were too busy to notice, right? He's going to show out, and it's going to be very evident that this is not a relationship that you want to be in. And then you get to make a decision around about being in this relationship or not. And I know in the past episode and this episode, I have talked a lot about like leaving the relationship and making a decision to be in the relationship. And I want to let you know that I am not necessarily one, I'm never going to make a decision for you or tell you that you need to leave a relationship of any kind. That said, I will share my observations with you and I will help you make a decision. So when I say make a decision to leave the relationship or to stay, what I really mean is if come to find out you actually don't want to be in this relationship, come to find out this partner is maybe he's great and all, but it's just not a relationship that you want to be in. And you decide, you know what, I want to leave. I will help you figure out the logistics for that and help you through that emotional process. Because even if it is something you're choosing to do, there are still emotions involved. And I will help you through that process as a as a third party, right? I'm not your friends that are like emotionally invested, although I love and care for you deeply. It is not the same thing, right? I'm not your mama, I'm not your brothers, right? Like it's a different dynamic, okay? Um, and if you decide you want to stay, which is a perfectly valid option, I'm going to help you recommit to that relationship because of some of y'all are like half in and half out. So like you're committed in the sense that you're in the relationship, but your head's not in there, right? Your feelings aren't in there. The way that you're showing up is as if you don't want to be in the relationship or as if you haven't decided if you want to be in the relationship. And so if you decide, you know what, I do want to be in this relationship, I will help you recommit. So if this episode spoke to you, I highly encourage you to apply for one-on-one coaching. Again, you are not like signing on the line. I am going to absolutely coach with you. But if this spoke to you, one-on-one coaching is for you. The link, as always, is in the show notes. And if maybe this wasn't for you, but you're like, oh, I know somebody, right? Or I know somebody that knows somebody, send them this episode. Be like, hey, like, here's how you can do it. One, if you feel comfortable calling them out, then you could just send it to them, right? And be like, hey, this is for you. If you're like, I know this is for them, but I feel kind of awkward, you can be like, hey, I really love this podcast and this is the latest episode, but like I just wanted to send it to you, whatever. And just throw in that caveat. Be like, yeah, this is the latest episode, but I think you'll really like this podcast. Like, I didn't mean to send this episode, but like, you know, whatever. I've been meaning to send this to you, what have you. Okay. And if you've been listening for a while, or even if this was your very first time, thank you. And I would love it if you would give me a 5-star review, share some love in the reviews wherever you listen to podcasts. That helps me get out to more people. And if you wouldn't mind, share on your Instagram. So I've been on Instagram a lot more lately. So if you share it to your stories and tag me, I would be forever grateful. So that's all I have for you today. Apply for one-on-one coaching now before you forget. I know y'all, you're probably going to put it off. Do it now. It is not going to take you long at all to fill out that application. And I will see y'all next week. Bye.